All right. Hey, you guys. Welcome to the fourth week in our mental health and entrepreneurship series. This is week 4. So we're going to be covering insecurities and how you manage that in business, which is a place that typically requires us to show up fairly confident, especially when we're working for ourselves. So I know that Crystal is here with me, first of all, before I forget to introduce her, as always. So we're just going to chit chat today with you guys about insecurities and what we do to kind of overcome them or embrace them. And as always, we'd love your guys' feedback as well. What's up, Crystal? How's it going?
Same old, Claire.
Are you drinking? Is that cold brew?
No, it is not. It is coffee that's got a lot of protein in it.
Oh, nice.
I have to turn my macros in every week.
Crystal's a gym rat at this point, if you guys didn't know.
Yeah, but part of me says, man, why did I commit to agreeing to turn in my diet to a trainer? Because then it's like I can't cheat, but that's the whole point, is that accountability.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been talking about in our Let's Get Real series. So I figured if I didn't eat my own dog food, I would be a pretty crappy person.
Well, let's dive in. What are your thoughts on insecurities, or what are your insecurities, and how do you kind of navigate them in your work life?
Raw. I think insecurities are extremely natural, and I think they're just a fundamental part of being Homo sapien. Every human being develops insecurities by the time we're really, really young, right? We have so much stimulus that we're exposed to. And in that stimulus, we are taught to see people as perfect beings, right? You can't take your kids shopping at the grocery store without them seeing some super thin or plastic surgeried up Kardashian whatever, right? On the cover of a magazine, right? We're taught that, girls have to be little princesses and a prince rescues you. And if you're a man, you have to have money and you have to be good looking, and all this crap creates really insecure people when we get older. And it certainly doesn't help that, friendships and intimate relationships could be the same, maybe not, don't last forever. So what do we do as human beings? We drag all this baggage into the next place we end up. And all these things just snowball into insecurities. And I think women are particularly more susceptible to being insecure because I think most women have more societal pressure to look a certain way, to act a certain way, to dress a certain way. Men have pressure to do things that are more masculine, which is a little less damaging, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, I want to address, I think a big one for anyone who's starting a business or has their own business, or works as a freelancer or solopreneur, or, however you identify, is imposter syndrome, right? Like this kind of, we all have it. It's something that it gets talked about a little bit in the entrepreneurial community, but I don't think it gets talked about enough. And this idea that, those thoughts kind of creep in, like, what if I'm not delivering great results? Or what if I'm not showing up for my clients in the ways that I think I am? Or maybe I can't handle this account when I can. And it makes it difficult to level up your business to the next level when you're kind of grappling with those things in your own mind. And imposter syndrome, I think, is a really big thing. And it makes you feel like maybe you don't deserve what you're receiving, even if you worked really hard, or even if you do have the skills to show up. And like Crystal said, it's because we put a ton of pressure, especially on women, to kind of show up perfect every time. And we put a lot of emphasis on professionalism. And if you don't show up in exactly the right ways, you're not professional, or you're not reliable. And I think especially when you sell virtually, a lot of my clients that I'm onboarding, we don't even ever meet in person. And that's an even different challenge when you kind of have to build all that know, like, trust from the ground up. Virtually can be difficult. But it could be difficult anywhere to kind of build that know, like, trust, especially when you're grappling with, imposter syndrome, which we all do. There's always been a moment for everyone in their business where they've thought, am I doing the right thing? Can I do this? Can I deliver what I promised I would deliver? And those, I think, dealing with those thoughts, when you're working at home alone in your home office or your co-working space, and you maybe don't have anyone in your business that's validating you because you're either at the top and everyone is beneath you in terms of the power structure, or you're simply the only person currently that works in your business. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear everyone's thoughts on that in the comments. And Crystal, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, and I have a lot of clients overseas, and I will be completely honest about this. With some of them, they're nice people, but they come from cultures that are not accepting of working with women, particularly like very gay women. So there are some situations where I know, as frustrated as it is, it's probably easier that they don't know what I look like. And I made the mistake for the first couple of years of my career, right out of high school, 18, 19 years old, going to this place that I call the shadows of expectations. And it's where you try to change your image because you don't know how to, I've never really fit in, right? Ever, being in a really small, cow town. But going into the professional world, it was really hard because none of the other women looked like me. They didn't dress like me. I wasn't one of the guys. I didn't know where I fit in. Even as an adult, I got picked on. Management wasn't always nice. And I tried to look and act like the other women, and I was miserable. And my performance suffered because of it. It was just an awful place to be. You can't be your best self if you're not real with who you are. So really, it's in order to be in order to get comfortable with your insecurities and really get over them, you got to be honest, and you have to be realistic. You have to know everyone isn't going to like me. Everyone isn't going to get me. Everything isn't going to go my way. I can't be perfect. I can only be me. But if you work hard at being the best version of yourself that you can, and you're true to yourself, that was a big confidence. But it doesn't mean that I don't have tons of insecurities with the way I look and my weight and stuff that shouldn't even matter, just like everybody else. But I know that being myself is so genuine and fucking awesome that I don't feel that pressure to be like everybody else, because I'm not. And that makes me more confident because it makes me okay with who I am. And, it means it's okay if you don't like it.
Well, and I think that's such a great point too. And we do have that kind of added layer. And I don't know if there's anyone else in here who identifies as queer or gay or LGBTQ.
Just being a woman can be so hard in the professional world.
Yeah, but you don't have to come out as a woman. Well, I don't know. Maybe you do sometimes, but
I don't know.
There's kind of that added layer when you're a member of like the queer entrepreneur community. Where it's like, when is it appropriate to come out to your clients? Do you have to come out to your clients? How do you kind of slide it in? I don't know the answer to those questions. I usually just get it out of the way out the gate right at the beginning because it's just easier. And then when it comes up later, it's not awkward.
I don't even talk about it.
Well, you don't have to as much.
Oh, so you're saying I'm a block-a-mo. You can tell. Block-a-mo. Yeah, I think we put too much stock in these things, right? And you and I do this as members of the queer community, but women do this too. They say, well, because I'm a woman, I have to overcome this before we ever have to overcome it. We shouldn't have to announce and say, I'm a woman and I'm here. We should just be able to walk into a room and wear that confidence, which is incredibly sexy, and be like, hey, I'm here to do this job. And it should be that simple. It really should. We shouldn't have to take all this time to say, oh, like, why should women be in a position where they have to define themselves and they have to fight harder? Why should anybody be in that position, of any sexuality or gender affiliation or religion or skin color? We shouldn't, I kind of fight against those things. Like, why do we really need to talk about this? If it's
Well,
really
we do need to talk about it though, because they do exist, they do happen, and it's not as simple as just saying like, well, I'm just not going to worry about it. But I do think that there's tools that can kind of help you navigate those insecurities that are kind of those external insecurities that are like coming at you like a bright red flag and wherever society is throwing them at you. And so I think then it becomes a thing of, how do I manage how I'm talking to myself?
Right.
Like, maybe everyone out in the world is talking to me in a certain way, but how can I speak to myself charitably and in a way that is empowering and in a way that is going to allow me to walk into that conference call or that sales meeting or whatever, feeling like, fuck, I got this.
And that's what I mean. I'm not saying nobody should talk about these things. I'm saying that unless you want to make it a big deal that, yeah, I'm a woman, it's okay if people bring it up, for you to just shut shit down and do your thing. You don't have to, you don't have to sit there and allow that kind of behavior. Nobody should feel like anybody gets to ostracize them, especially if you're in an industry that is very male dominated.
Right.
There's female welders and female mechanics and female pilots, and there's men that work at Bath and Body Works that have to go through the same thing, right? You shouldn't ever, don't ever accept, and that's what I mean by that, is don't ever accept someone making you question yourself because of a physical attribute, because
Right.
that's a bunch of BS. That's as silly as saying, oh, you have blue eyes, I'm not sure if you can be in this room. Okay.
Well, and I think I don't personally, to me, when I deal with discrimination or whatever, which is different than what we're talking about, which is insecurities, it's never that overt. I've never had someone come up to me and be like, oh, you can't be in this room. It tends to be.
I get that and much more, especially living in this town.
I'm sure you do. You also live in a very different place than I do. Yeah.
Very true.
I think in terms of tools to like manage your own like insecurities when the way you're feeling or the way I'm feeling, I find morning affirmations really, really helpful, and just daily affirmations. Put it on a Post-it note, stick it on your computer. Is it going to fix how you feel about yourself 100% of the time? No. Are you still going to like have negative self-talk? Yes. That's a constant battle. I think for me, I know there's a lot of dialogue in the entrepreneurial community about like, stay positive or think positively. And while I think that can be good, I also think it's okay to just validate your own feelings and just say to yourself, like, I'm feeling really negative about this, and kind of just sit with it and understand why you're feeling that way, or what external factors made you feel that way, and how can you organize your day to mitigate those.
Self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, you don't understand, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And if you don't understand those things, you can't overcome it. You're basically just covering it up with a blanket at that point. Like, I'm just going to cover this up with a blanket of positivity.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, quote unquote gurus out there right now, especially preaching to women, especially preaching to women who work for themselves, that like, if you can just stay upbeat and positive, everything will be dandy. And I'm calling bullshit on that. You're going to have moments of negativity. You're going to have moments where you feel insecure about things, and it's okay to kind of embrace those feelings and analyze like why you're feeling that way, instead of just kind of, I know for me, it's been helpful to release myself from having to be positive all the time. And then coupling that with kind of affirmations throughout the day of like, I am a badass. I can handle this. I do my job well. That's how I found balance in terms of managing my own insecurities.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's such a fine line, right? There's a fine line between people who are confident and cocky and arrogant. And there's a fine line between people who are humble and people who are just, I mean, self-loathing. They just have no, oh my goodness. It's challenging, but we have to be realistic with ourselves in order for us to grow, right? So we have to, I have to be able to say, man, I can get really temperamental. Like, when I lose it, oh my God, I have to be honest with myself and have the self-awareness to say, yeah, that's, problematic, but I have to control the way I think and go, I'm such a bad person because I have a bad temper and I will never be able to fix it. And it'll hold me back in life. So there's that fine line that, you have to take stock in your value as a person. You have to sometimes sit there and say, this is what makes me a good person at the core of who I am. And these are my morals. And, these are the things that I won't do in life. And this is where I'm not perfect and I'm going to work on them. But this is where I really shine. And in business, imposter syndrome is tough. And again, it's a fine line of saying, I'm really good at these things. I need to stop doubting it. And on the flip side, this is something I shouldn't be doing because I'm not an expert at it. So you always just have to have that self-awareness, to be honest with yourself and think about, what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? Because you can start teaching yourself, I can think more positively about this, right? And I can think about this in a way that I can help myself without just being just completely hateful. And activities, man, doing things that make you feel good, right? You love yoga and meditation. That makes you feel confident. I like going to the gym. I mean, it makes me, it's like what I think I look like when I walk out and I'm like, back to the chopper. Like, you get that thing. If I get, frustrated and I want to hit something, I'll play a video game and, maybe, snipe somebody or do something that, helps me get out my competitive nature, because I'm very competitive, right? And you may want to go to the park and run, or maybe go shoot basketball in a hoop, or art, or whatever it is that you do. Know what activities you can go do that will help you feel good about yourself. What hobbies do you have? What are you really good at? If you're good at photography and you know it, and you're feeling just a lack of confidence, grab that camera and go take some photos and look at them and be like, damn, I'm talented. Do those things. Give yourself, that's a self-love, self-care thing that we don't do as women. We don't sit there enough and say, you know what, I'm going to go do something that I know is going to make me feel good, that's going to help me feel confident about myself.
And I think too, those are great points. I know we keep harping on the accountability buddy thing, but surrounding yourself with community that can kind of lift you up. And I would say even specifically people in your field, everyone's field has its own kind of unique things that it brings to the table, and problems and issues and insecurities, and being able to go and discuss that with people who really understand where you're coming from can be really empowering, and can kind of help validate, like, okay, I'm not like losing my head. This is a real problem. Other people in my industry face it. And finding community in that way, if you're not plugged into like in your industry specific group where you can get support, I highly recommend that. There's tons on Facebook. I'm in one for marketers that's amazing. People go in there and they make jokes about marketing. They make jokes about, specific things that we encounter, and client jokes. And sometimes it can just be a really nice space to go commiserate with people who really, really understand where you're coming from.
Commiserate. Marketers commiserate people. We really do.
So yeah, if you don't have that, maybe, getting something in place where you can go to have your insecurities kind of recognized and heard and validated, that other people in your field are feeling that way too, or sometimes feel that way too. And I think having, kind of a biz bestie or a group of biz besties that you can check in with every week is super, super helpful.
It is super helpful. And I mean, I've got accountability partners in various capacities, which no doubt about it, it's changed my life. And I would go as far to say it's possible that it saved it. I mean, I can't stress enough what it will do if you get the right people in your inner circle. And that's the challenge. I can guarantee every single one of us in this group, we can't pick our families, y'all. We've all got those family members that it's just like, oh my God. And we've got those friends that we love because they're good people, but they're negative, or they criticize you, or they're jealous of you. You have to learn to cut people loose in life. Your mental well-being depends on it. And I didn't realize how many people were fueling negativity in me and that were just causing a lot of the self-loathing that I had. And I had to spend I love these people, but I have to spend a lot less time for them because they're not good for me. They're not healthy for what I need to build me up and keep myself motivated. So you really have to be very aware. And if it's family members, you may have to tell family members, you know what, you're not benefiting me, Aunt Sarah, and I can't be around you all the time. I mean, it's okay for you to do
Absolutely.
that. And
Absolutely.
keeping, for me, a huge, huge, huge thing. I've always been independent. For me, gaining independence as an adult was easy. And I've never, ever, ever lost that. I've always been the breadwinner, the caretaker, always supported the wife, been a house husband, do all this stuff. To me, that if I lost my independence, I would probably lose my sanity. So if some of you are a little less independent, you might find it self-empowering to get that independence or have areas where you can completely be independent and have that control, right? And have that priority of yourself.
Awesome. Well, we've touched on some really good stuff. I know um I'll also just say that like we all have insecurities. You're not alone. If you're feeling alone or feeling like you have imposter syndrome, there's lots of great resources out there. Um, and sound off in the comments. We want to know what your guys' tips are, or what your strategies that you have that you use to manage insecurities in business and in life, really. And we'll be coming at you next week for our final episode, episode 5. I can't believe we've already gone through our 5-week series already.
Yeah.
So, and if you guys have ideas of what you want to hear next, or guests you'd like to see, or if you have a specific skill and you want to come on and do a talk with us, we'd love to have you. So reach out to us.
Yep. And I've got an exercise that I came up with that I'll be posting once we release the video to share. And I did it for a while and it's really fantastic. And if you just, if you want to get more positivity in your day, this thing works. And then I'll share some people with you that you can look up that I think are really good reads to develop more self-awareness.
Awesome. All right. So check that out. Crystal will throw it in the comments for you guys. You can find those resources. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much again. Bye.